We're currently seeing a signal in the Bitcoin price action that we've never seen before. If this signal plays out anything like similar instances in the past, then be ready for some crazy price action in the very near future. So we'll get straight into it here on the Bitcoin volatility chart we have here on bitcoinmagazinepro.com. Now what I'm going to do is remove all of these lines apart from the 3-month volatility data, the quarterly volatility data for Bitcoin. And what we can see is if I just draw on the chart here, we're currently at or just about at levels that we've pretty much never seen before. Only on 2 previous instances have we seen the quarterly volatility for Bitcoin this low. On the previous instances, if we look back to this cycle, it led to a multi-month bull move for BTC, going from just about $30,000 to that peak at around $73,000, $74,000 post ETF launch last year. And then the other instance was back here in 2017, which really kicked off the parabolic move for that big bull market that took us to $20,000. So the fact that we're now once again at these levels gives us some good indication that this period of choppy consolidationary price action is hopefully coming close to its end, and hopefully we can see a big explosive move following that. Now we do have some good ideas of what direction this move will be in, looking at a few different metrics. So I'll be looking at some derivative data here at the Bitcoin funding rates. Now what we can see looking at the coin denominated Bitcoin funding rates, this is currently showing that recently we've had a negative perpetual funding rate fees, indicating a majority of leverage traders were actually betting on further downside for the BTC price action. Now, if you look at the most recent price action, we can see that they were actually trying to short after we'd bounced from around $108,000, $107,000 to about $115,000, $116K. So they were coming in late, trying to short the market after I'd already bounced. Now, what we can see, again, looking at all previous instances where we've had coin-denominated negative funding rates for Bitcoin, this almost always ends badly for these shorters coming in late to the market, especially once we've already had a bit of a downwards move in price action. We can see any single time that this price action has resulted in negative funding rates, the unfortunate reality is a majority of traders are wrong most of the time. Now we look to the Bitcoin open interest. What we can also see is usually when we have trending price action, it results in the open interest decreasing. This is usually because people are betting when there's boring price action, when there's a very small amount of volatility. So people try and increase their bets, try and maximize the rewards when we do get a big violent breakout. But this actually usually ends up providing some fuel for the fire. If everyone's shorting Bitcoin, then once we actually get a bit of a move to the upside, this creates this liquidation cascade, this short squeeze where traders who are betting on further downside have to cover their positions. They have to close out forcibly their positions by getting liquidated by these exchanges. And in doing so, that results in the price increasing slightly, which results in more people getting liquidated, which results in the price action moving quickly up again. And it gets in this feedback loop. So what we can see is we're now in a period where the Bitcoin open interest has been rapidly increasing over the past few months as price action has been stagnating, indicating that when we do get a bit of a breakout, it's likely going to be quite a violent move for Bitcoin. What we can also see, I'm not someone who trades price action patterns too much, but we can see we have just been coiling in price action for a very long period of time. And that's been pretty indicative of this cycle, really. If we just zoom out, what we can see is as Bitcoin has moved up throughout this entire cycle, we've moved in these cyclical waves of choppy consolidation, sideways, boring price action, let's be honest, before these big explosive moves in price action. And especially when we look at where we are in this current Bitcoin cycle, just looking at the seasonality, everyone was not looking forward to September because historically it has been one of the weaker months for Bitcoin. But we can see we've actually had fairly positive returns. But looking forward into Q4, it has historically been the strongest period for the Bitcoin price action, especially when we look at the returns following a positive September. We can see last year, after again a positive September, it resulted in nearly 50% gains in the following 2 months. In the previous year, in 2023, again, we had 28%, then 9%, then 12% gains. And then prior to that, we had a long streak of negative years for September. But again, going back the previous 2 instances, going all the way back to 2015 and 2016, after a positive September, we had a very positive Q4 for Bitcoin. And this is further outlined by looking at the seasonality chart here for Bitcoin. We can see historically September has been the weakest month, but given the fact we've already seen a positive September, this was following a potentially front-run negative August, we have some high expectations for a really bullish Q4. Now, while I go over to the TradingView chart here, and what I'll do is I'll just move myself over here so it's a little bit easier to see. This is the signal that we've actually never seen before on Bitcoin. This is looking at the Bollinger Band width. So the Bollinger Band is just a very simple indicator looking at a 20-period moving average and looking at the standard deviation of volatility around that moving average. And what we can see is when we actually look at the width, it gives us an idea of how close we may be to a big explosive move in the Bitcoin price action. Once we move massively to the upside and these Bollinger Bands are incredibly wide, it usually means that the market may be running out of steam. But currently we're seeing a BBW tighter than it ever has been before. And if we look to the current value, which is around 19.94, that is the lowest value we've ever had on this metric. Now, this is looking at the weekly time frame, but again, if we look at every single instance in where we've had a Bollinger Band width this tight and look at the 6 months following that, again, we can see it's always resulted in massive moves in the following 6 months. Even in this cycle, we had over 100% move in the 6 months that followed. And then previously, once again, we had a big move to the downside before once again in the following 6 months having a huge upside move in the Bitcoin price action. And just throughout all of Bitcoin's history, this has been the case. We have very cyclical periods of big explosive moves, contraction, expansion, just like the price action of bull and bear cycles. And if we go down to the daily time frame here, this is a metric that we actually cover quite a lot in our subscriber analysis posts. This is the Bitcoin squeeze potential. So this is taking into account multiple different metrics, the open interest, the actual traded volume on the spot markets, as well as actual underlying price action of Bitcoin. And we can see whenever the squeeze potential reaches this upper red region, it usually indicates that a big move is coming for the Bitcoin price action. And when it's down here in the lower regions, it indicates that we're maybe due a bit of a cool off in the price action, maybe a little bit more of some boring sideways choppy consolidationary price action. But again, if I just zoom out so we can see the past couple cycles for BTC, anytime we've reached these upper regions, it's resulted in a multi-month massive move for BTC. Even in this cycle, every time we've reached one of these upper regions, and especially once we've sustained in this upper region for a period of a few days, weeks, or even a month or two, we can see it's resulted in massive moves for Bitcoin. And like I said, looking at the derivative data, we certainly have some indications that we need to be having a bullish bias going forward. And I won't cover too much data today just to give a massive, overwhelming amount of charts and analysis, but looking at the macroeconomic perspective, the on-chain data perspective, everything is definitely pointing in one direction for the Bitcoin market. And given the fact that we rarely see these periods of very low volatility last for more than a few days or a few weeks, there's good indications that this period of choppy consolidation reprice action is going to be over in the very near future. Also, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. And make sure to check out all the charts discussed today, as well as the many more that are all available on BitcoinMagazinePro.com, your #1 source for Bitcoin analysis. So just to summarize, Bitcoin is currently experiencing some of the lowest levels of volatility it has ever experienced. And historically, anytime we've had any similar periods of contraction, it has led to massive expansion in the following months. And when we look at the Bollinger Band width, we can see on the weekly time frame, we have never had a Bollinger Band width as tight as they currently are. And like we could see from the charts, this usually results in a multi-month big trending period of price action for BTC. Sometimes there's a little bit of a fake out. Sometimes we'll have a week or two of very negative price action before we rebound stronger to the upside. But when we look at the derivatives market, we can see there is plenty of fuel to lead to a big, massive squeeze, hopefully to the upside, especially when we look for confluence in macroeconomic markets. We're very close to potentially a bullish Fed pivot. When we look at on-chain data, there's not a huge amount of long-term hold or profit taking. And especially with Bitcoin nearing Q4, which is historically the strongest period of BTC price action. As I've said, while we're seeing traditional markets rallying to new all-time highs, people shorting the market, plenty of other stuff we didn't even cover today, but look at the charts, you can see it all for yourself. There's very good reason to believe that the next major trending breakout will be to the upside. But do keep in mind this consolidation isn't necessarily going to end in the next day or two. Of course, with the Fed meeting tomorrow, that could be the catalyst that could result in a big breakout. Maybe that's priced in, maybe it's not. But over the coming days and weeks, keep an eye on the markets, because when this move really starts, we can see just how fast Bitcoin can move to the upside, or hopefully not the downside. If you like this video, then please visit BitcoinMagazinePro.com, where our analytics help you to cut through the noise to make informed, data-driven decisions about Bitcoin. With over 150 live charts, personalized indicator alerts, in-depth crypto industry reports, API access, and more for a fraction of the standard industry price. And let me know what your thoughts are on Bitcoin potentially having a huge major breakout in trending price action in the coming weeks potentially. And if so, what direction do you think that move will be? Let me know in the comments below and on social media. I look forward to reading and replying to them. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.